Welcome back to Living Life to the Fullest, the space where we explore the inner workings of our minds, our behaviors, and the invisible patterns that shape our lives. I'm your host, Eve, and today I want to talk about something that we all experience at some point, this constant search for something outside of us to make us feel fulfilled. Whether it's that glass of wine at the end of a stressful day, the vacation that promises to take all of our worries away, or even a new relationship that seems like it will finally make us happy. But have you ever noticed that once you get what you wanted, the satisfaction never lasts? So, why do we keep chasing? Why do we crave things that don't truly fulfill us? And it's because deep down, the longing isn't really for the thing itself. The longing comes from a gap that we experience between what is and what we think should be. And that gap that creates frustration, restlessness, sometimes even anger, but we don't always recognize it. Instead, we search for something external to feel it, and we distract ourselves. We escape into work or into traveling or into habits that give us temporary that relief. But have you ever stopped to ask yourself, what am I really longing for? So let me ask you this. Have you ever gotten something that you really wanted only to feel empty after? Maybe you finally got that promotion, or you bought something you've been saving up for, or even started a new relationship. And yet, a few days or weeks later, that same sense of longing creeps back in. So, if this resonates with you, take a moment to reflect on that feeling and what was actually missing. So, the gap between what is and what should be. So, let's get really honest here for a moment. How often do you find yourself thinking, this isn't how it's supposed to be? Maybe that's about your career or your relationships, about your body or your finances. And maybe it's something as small as the way your morning started or as big as the direction your entire life is heading. This feeling that where we are isn't where we should be, that creates tension. It creates suffering. And yet we don't always recognize that this suffering is self-imposed. So where does this gap actually come from? How does it exist? And the gap between what is and what should be comes from an invisible script that we've been carrying. It's about expectations that were placed on us by either society or family or through past experiences and even through our own self-judgment. So we grow up with ideas about how life should be, how life should unfold, and we have thoughts about what we should have achieved at a certain age. So for example, by this age I should have had this much money, or by now I should be married and my job should feel so much more fulfilling. I should be more content, confident, I should be happier. And when reality doesn't match that mental picture, we feel frustrated, we feel disappointed, or even like we have failed. So let's bring this to life with some real life examples and see if any of these feel familiar to you. So one of the examples is for that you work really hard at your job. You really give it 110%, but you still feel unfulfilled. Why? Because your mind is telling you, I should be further ahead by now. Or perhaps you're single and you're actually enjoying your independence and the freedom that comes when you are single, that you don't have to talk with someone about how to plan your day, that you have the freedom to decide how you want things done. But imagine there's this voice telling you in the back of your head, whispering, I should have found my person already, or I should be in a relationship. So that could also be an example. Maybe you're doing your best to stay healthy. You try to look after what you're eating. You go regularly to the gym. But one day you look in the mirror and think, I should look better by now. I should see more results on my body. That's another example of the gap that you can experience. Or maybe you take a risk and start something new, but the results don't come fast enough and you feel defeated because this should be happening faster, is what you're thinking. Or maybe you experience a setback, maybe a breakup, a financial struggle, or an unexpected detour. And instead of accepting it, you resist because you think this shouldn't be happening to me, or why is this happening to me? So each of these moments, it's a perfect example of the gap in between what is and what we think should be. So the frustration isn't coming from what is actually happening, from the actual situation, but it's coming from your mind resisting what is and comparing it to an expectation that doesn't match reality. It's the pain of resistance. And let's sit with that for a second, because your suffering isn't coming from the situation itself, but from your resistance to that situation. And our minds, they create a picture of how things should be. And when reality doesn't align with it, we suffer. It's like a constant tug of war between what really is, what's real, and what we wish was real. But there's where it gets really interesting, because what if the goal wasn't to force life to match our expectations, but instead to close the gap from the other direction? So, what if instead of resisting what is, we started to accept it, to make peace with it, to stop believing that life is wrong just because it doesn't look the way we thought it would? So, what does resistance actually feel like? Because you might be wondering, that sounds all good, but how do I know when I am actually resisting, when I am in resistance? So let's break it down, because resistance isn't just a concept, it's something that you can actually feel in both your mind and in your body. So in the mind, resistance feels like a loop of repetitive thoughts. So for example, if you're over analyzing, if you're worrying, or if you're replaying past situations. In the mind, it can also feel like frustration that things aren't going the way you expected or hoped it to be. Or it can come as a voice that keeps whispering, this isn't enough, or I should be happier, or I should be further ahead, or why is this happening to me? So that is a little bit on how you can notice resistance in the mind. In the body, resistance can feel like tension in your shoulders, in your jaw, or in your stomach, like your body is sort of bracing itself for something. So you can feel the tension collecting. You can also experience a sense of restlessness, like you need to move, or you need to fix, or you need to escape, but you're not sure what from. Or it can be a feeling of heaviness, tightness in chest, or a lump in your throat that won't go away. So now take a moment, and when was the last time that you felt like this? Was it when you were waiting for someone to text you back, or when you saw someone on social media seemingly doing better in life than you? Maybe when something didn't go your way and you replayed it over and over in your head? So that feeling, that's resistance. And maybe you're wondering now, like, okay, I have felt, maybe I felt the resistance, but how, you're wondering, how do you start closing that gap? What is the solution to this? So what do we do? How do we start closing the gap and freeing ourselves from the suffering it creates? And the first step in this is that what we just did a little bit. Notice when it's happening. So notice when it's happening. You can do that in the present moment when it's happening. So the next time that you feel frustrated, ask yourself, am I resisting what is? Am I wishing this were different instead of working with what's here? And just become aware of this pattern. That is a huge first step. And then the second step is challenging the should. What are you telling yourself? Who told you life should look a certain way? What are you telling yourself how it should be? And where did this expectation come from? And is it even true? Often we realize that these sort of rules aren't actually ours. They were given to us by someone else, society, or family sometimes. And if that's the case, we can choose to let them go. And then the third and the last step is practicing radical acceptance. So that doesn't mean that you're giving up or settling for less. It just means making peace with reality. So you can move forward with clarity instead of frustration. You can move through the moment rather than resisting it. So when we stop resisting, we stop wasting energy fighting against life. And that energy can be used to create real change. One of the things that can happen, that can really help, it's very simple, but a profound mindset shift that changes everything. So instead of asking, why is this happening to me when something happens, try asking, what is this teaching me? What lesson do I see in this? And every time life doesn't go as planned, we have two choices. We can either resist it and get stuck in frustration and stay in suffering, or we can learn from it, adapt, and grow. That's really like moving through it. One path leads to endless dissatisfaction, and the other leads to the wisdom, resilience, and freedom that you're after. So the gap between what is and what should be only exists for as long as you keep believing in it. And the moment that you let go of the should, you set yourself free. One of the things that I wanted to talk about a little bit is this underlying restlessness. And I think we all experience that sometimes, whether we realize it or not, the restlessness. And it's a feeling that no matter what we achieve, no matter what we acquire, it never quite feels like enough. We always want more. So think about it. How many times in your life have you wanted something so badly? Maybe it was a job, maybe a relationship, maybe a new experience, traveling somewhere. And once you finally got it or you finally did it, that deep satisfaction you imagined never really came. Or maybe it did come, but it only lasted for a short while. And then before you even realized, your mind was already on the next thing. You were craving something new, something else. So that in itself, that is the nature of the mind. It constantly moves the goalpost. It convinces us that happiness is always just a little bit further ahead, just beyond our reach. And then we get thoughts of like, I will be happy when I lose the weight, or I will be happy when I find the right partner. I will be happy when I have more money, more success, more time, more friends, more freedom. But what happens when we get there? The mind simply shifts to another desire, another condition, and the chase starts all over again. And maybe you've experienced this in your life. So let me know in the comments if you are familiar with this. Underneath all of this, the constant wanting, the endless striving, there is a deeper belief, a belief that who we are right now is not enough. And this belief fuels self-judgment. We compare ourselves to others. We tell ourselves we should be better, we should be stronger, we should be more successful. We look at where we are and think this isn't good enough. I am not good enough. But here's the truth. This cycle is not your fault. It's not a personal failing. It's simply the way the human mind has been conditioned over time. And it's the way we've been programmed to think, to strive, to measure our worth against an invisible standard. And if you've ever felt like this way, I want you to know you are not alone. Every single person experiences this in some form. Even the people you admire, the ones who seem to have it all together, still feel moments of doubt, of not being good enough. It comes to the point that I wanted to talk about, and that's about the impermanence of life. Everything in life is impermanent. Nothing stays the same forever. And think about the biggest moments of happiness you've had in your life. And maybe it was falling in love or achieving something great, experience an adventure. In that moment, it felt incredible. But did it last forever? No, it didn't. The feeling changed, life moved forward. And the same goes for the hard times. The heartbreak, the failures, the disappointments, they too eventually passed. Nothing in this life is permanent. Not our happiness, not our pain, not even the version of ourselves we are today. So what does this really mean? It means that chasing happiness, trying to fix ourselves so that we can finally feel worthy, is an endless game. Because no feeling, no achievement, no external thing can ever give us permanent peace. And the only way to break free from this cycle is to step outside of it, to recognize it for what it is, to understand that the mind will always crave, always judge, always tell us we are not enough, unless we make the choice to stop believing it. So what if instead of judging yourself for feeling this way, what if you would accept it? What if instead of resisting the natural impermanence of life, you embraced it? What if the next time you feel the urge for more, the next time your mind tells you that you're not good enough, you just pause, you just notice it, just remind yourself, this is just my mind doing what it always does. I don't have to believe it. Because here's the thing, you are already whole and you always have been. Nothing you achieve, nothing you gain, nothing outside of you will ever make you more worthy than you are in this very moment. The truth is, this search will never end until we recognize what's really happening. We live in a constant state of not good enough. We judge, we compare, we blame, and we don't even realize that our mind is keeping us trapped in this cycle of dissatisfaction. But here's something powerful. What if just for 1 hour you tried something different? What if you spent the next hour of your day without judging, without blaming, without complaining, and just noticing life as it is? Do you think you can do that? So it means like having no thoughts of traffic is so annoying, or I wish I had more money, or why does my partner always do that? But instead, just notice these thoughts when they come up, and instead of reacting, take a deep breath. Let them pass. It's so simple, but it's not easy because our minds are wired to resist what is. But when you bring awareness to these moments, something shifts. You start to loosen the grip of these old thought patterns, and that's when real change begins. Without awareness, our mind keeps running the same program. And that program creates unhappiness. But once you start noticing, really noticing how often you judge yourself, others, or even your circumstances, something shifts. You start to see that the problem was never out there. It was never about the thing you thought you needed. The real shifts happens inside you. So let's take a moment to reflect on everything we've talked about today. We started with that restless search, the feeling that something is missing, that craving for something outside of ourselves to make us feel whole. And we realized that what we're really experiencing in these moments isn't just a desire for more, it's resistance, a resistance to what is, to the current moment. We explored how this resistance shows up in both our minds and bodies, the racing thoughts, the frustration, the tension, the restlessness, and we uncovered the true source of our suffering, the gap between reality and our expectations of how things should be. And then we talked about awareness, how simply noticing our patterns can begin to shift them. We don't have to force change. We don't have to fix everything right away. We just have to notice. And in that noticing, there's already transformation. So what if nothing had to change in your life? What if nothing in your life had to change for you to feel at peace? What if instead of chasing something outside of yourself, you simply allowed yourself to be present with what is? How different would your life, So over the next 24 hours, I want you to notice, when does resistance show up for you? When do you feel impatient? When do you feel frustrated or restless? And instead of reacting, instead of reaching for distraction, just pause, just notice and see what happens. You don't need to fix anything. You don't need to judge yourself. Just observe. And if you try this, I'd love to hear from you. What did you notice? And did anything shift for you? Send me a message, share your thoughts in the comments, or reach out on social media. Let's start a conversation, because the more we bring awareness to our own patterns, the more we empower each other to break free from them. And I want to leave you with one last thought. You do not need to be fixed. Everything you're searching for is already within you. The only thing standing in the way is the belief that it's somewhere else, the belief that it's outside of yourself. So today, instead of searching, just be, just breathe, just notice and see what unfolds. And let me know how it goes. I'm on Instagram at the 180 degrees turnaround. 180 is written in numbers, so 180. And if this episode resonated with you, share it with a friend who might need to hear it too. And before we wrap up, I want to leave you with something to think about, because we've spent this episode talking about resistance, the way we struggle against the present moment and how it keeps us stuck. But what if, instead of focusing on what's wrong, we trained our minds to anchor into what feels good, to focus on the things that go right. And imagine if you could lock in these small moments of joy, these fleeting feelings of peace, confidence, happiness, and actually use them to shift your entire mindset, your entire energy, and even the way you show up in your life. What if you could create a personal reset button to bring yourself back into a powerful, elevated state whenever you need it? Because that's exactly what we're going to explore in the next episode. I will be sharing how to anchor feel-good moments and how to use them to level up your life so you can move through your days with more ease, with more confidence and joy. Trust me, you won't want to miss this one. Thank you for spending this time with me today. And remember, awareness is the first step toward creating real change in your life. Until next time, take care and stay present.